talk about ecstasis. All right, welcome everybody to Sifting Through the Rubble. We have been going through the pedagogical principles of classical education these many weeks together. Where we last left off, we had done Festina Lente, Multum Non Multa, Decendo Discimus, Repetitio Mater Memoriae, and Optimus Magister Bonus Liber. Scholae, this idea of leisure and restful learning, will be the episode that we'll post next week to YouTube. Today, we're going to go to this principle, ecstasis and studium, wonder and curiosity. And we'll use this Pieper quote to start our conversation, and then we'll look at some other books and some concepts this morning. So from Josef Pieper, Roman Catholic German philosopher. I reference him in the Scholae section. This book, Leisure, the Basis of Culture, by Josef Pieper, is a quintessential book when trying to understand reclaiming contemplation as a part of the human experience and existence. He wrote it in the 40s, I think. Yes. He gave the essay in 47 in Bonn. This book has two sets of essays in it, which is why it's a little thick. The second set of essays is on philosophy. But the first set of essays, Leisure, the Basis of Culture, is really eye-opening and very interesting. I definitely commend it to you. He makes some really good points, and I talk about his perspective in the Scholae video. But his quote is right here. The ability to experience wonder is one of the highest possibilities of human nature. The ability to experience wonder is one of the highest possibilities of human nature. When we're talking about the positive things that humanity can do, wonder is one of the great things that we can do, that we were given to do from creation. Right? God created everything, and he saw that it was very good, and that very good creation still exists, albeit fallen into sin, but the creation still exists for us as God's chief creation, humanity, to wonder at it. Wonder here is entirely positive. Sometimes we use wonder in an ambiguous sense, but when it comes to education, to thinking about the good, true, and beautiful things, this wonder is a marveling sort of wonder. You'll see the Greek word I pulled is ecstasis for wonder. Ecstasis is the root for the word ecstasy, which, thanks to the latter part of the 20th century, doesn't have very positive connotation, but ecstasy can still mean, right, when we say we're ecstatic about something, it can mean that we have been taken by it, right, entirely filled with wonder. We do an awful lot of explaining and teaching, and many times that explanation is necessary and important. But more often, it would be best if we presented the material for people to wonder at first. When Christopher Perrin talks about wonder, he, in Pennsylvania, which is where he is, he likes to use the stick bug as an example. And he will say that if you want children to wonder, you don't bring a stick bug into science class and start explaining what it is and what it does. You just put it in the room and let their eyes catch it and let them sort of figure it out first and examine and think about the stick bug instead of a formal outline on stick bugs. There is something to be said in chemistry, third grade chemistry. which we do here. Yesterday, in a unit on calcium, they dissolved eggshells using vinegar. And all the kids were carrying around these very potentially volatile eggs in plastic bags without a shell, but just the film on the outside of the white and the yolk. And when I pass by many of the rooms, but certainly the third grade, when they're doing science, you can see the look on the kids' faces of wonder. Science is an easy place for that. Art and music is an easy place for wonder. I think personally history is, but oftentimes sometimes when it is presented, it can be presented in a dull way. And so there is a requirement on the part of the teacher to evoke wonder when the teacher presents. Sometimes the subject matter does it for you. There are many subjects that exist that if it's not wonderful, you've done something wrong, because it should be very wonderful right on its own. If you take people to see the geysers in Wyoming at Yellowstone, and Old Faithful goes off the way it's supposed to, you don't have to do anything to it. You can let people wonder and marvel at it. If you've ever been, this is another Wyoming thing, sorry, but if you've ever seen Jackson and the Grand Tetons, you have to work really hard to mess that up, for that not to be a wonderful vision to behold. And so wonder is something that we work hard to cultivate in the classroom and in our school. When we wonder at things, we should be directed toward lovely things to wonder at, true, good, and beautiful things to wonder at. And this wondering is also not just a surface level, but wonder, that immediate awe, should lead to contemplation, to thinking and pondering about what we are beholding. Americans are not well known for contemplating. It's not one of our strong suits. We don't tend to sit down and think about things. We hurry from task to task. So wonder is helpful in that it enables us to begin to slow down. And that's one of the points of Scholé, of leisure in learning. In talking about wonder and curiosity, it is important to know that curiosity has two very strong sort of definitions. One is the kind that kills the cat, to use the old saying, right? And in Latin, that's curiositas, which is where we get curiosity from. And that kind of curiosity is not a very good curiosity. That's a bad curiosity. Seeking after things we're not supposed to know and not supposed to pursue. So it's unfortunate that that's the word we got for curiosity, because we all understand that there's a positive side to curiosity. And that is the word studium. Studium can be used as a positive curiosity. Now, you may ask why or how. Studium, as I've talked about before in some of our sessions, comes from the Latin word and verb studeo studere, which means to be eager. And so studium, even though we see a word like study or being studious as a result of this, and we should, studium really means eagerness. It means zeal, enthusiasm, fondness for something. And this is the kind of positive curiosity we want to bring about in children, and that we enjoy in ourselves. When someone mentions a good book, or maybe something interesting to do, or food, certainly for me, I would not apply the word curiositas, but the word studium, an eagerness, a zeal to find out more. And all of us tend to have different things that naturally evoke this eagerness, studium, right? For Charlie, it's chemistry. Chemistry sets him right off, and he is ready to go. For me, it's languages. If you present something to me in a language that I don't know yet or have not been introduced to, I will immediately be taken in a wondrous ecstasy to go figure out how that language works. And part of the joy of running a school where all of those subjects are taught is trying to teach children that wonder and eagerness really can be had about anything that we're learning about. It shouldn't just be the things that we are prone to. Instead, God gives so many great bodies of knowledge. God provides through mankind so many works of art and of literature and of music. There are many things to wonder at, to be eager for, to desire, to learn and to grow, to contemplate. And so these two words together, ecstasis and studium, a wonder, an ecstasy brought about by experiencing something and contemplating it, and then a curiosity that is brought about by a zeal and eagerness. These are really significant in the classical school because they're significant for daily living, for human life. When you think about memories that you cherish, memories that sort of make you who you are, or stories you enjoy telling people that aren't just funny anecdotes, oftentimes wonder and excitement are the themes of the story. When you go on a trip and you see something beautiful, like the aspens that are behind Charlie, right? They're right in front of me, so I can see those, right? You want to tell that story because of the feelings it evoked in you when you saw it. That brings me to an important book, and I used feelings, which is it's not helpful. The Abolition of Man by C.S. Lewis. The Abolition of Man is from the 1940s, 42, 43. They are lectures that he gave. They are a little deep, but so incredibly prescient and necessary. We studied them as a faculty a couple of years ago, this book. It's a little one. It's short, but it's really, really good. I mentioned it on here before. You also can find it on YouTube, parts of it anyway, doodled, like drawn out, which could be fun to watch. I've enjoyed those. But the Abolition of Man, there are a number of points he makes, but one of the very important points that C.S. Lewis makes is that it isn't about feelings, but rather about the objective. So when one looks at trees, at mountains, at waterfalls, he uses an example from Coleridge. When one calls these things sublime or beautiful, it is not because one feels those things, but because the waterfall, the trees, the mountain possesses in it a sublimity endowed upon it by God that evokes that in a person. It's being done to you. When you look at the stick bug, which may not be the best example for all of us here, and wonder is brought about, it's because of that which is inherent to the stick bug, not just because of a feeling. And the more we can train our children to marvel and wonder at things because of what those things are, the more the creation that God has given us can be seen to work on us, on our thoughts, on our affections, on our relationships with one another. And so wonder and curiosity, cultivating a desire to to wonder at something, to contemplate it. These are very important for our school here, but also for education in the lifelong sense. Being able to approach a subject, a book, as I've said, any of those things, with wide eyes, with interest at what that will provide and do. So that in a nutshell is an overview of wonder and eagerness, but curiosity, and why those two, that sort of pairing, is important in the way we educate our children. It's also important in the way we educate ourselves. But it goes a long way in cultivating the desires and affections of our children towards learning further, and towards really just being amazed at all the things that there are to be amazed at. All right, I'm going to stop there and allow for some time for questions, reflections, dialogue. Leisure, the Basis of Culture is one of the books that definitely speaks to this. And C.S. Lewis's The Abolition of Man. Charlie, you got something?
Well, I was just going to say, you said all the right things for being a scientist, because in the beginning, oh, this is all new, and yeah, how do these things work? And that's what drew me into the field of science. But like any adult, as you get older, it's like clouds coming in. The real life interferes sometimes and takes away the wonder. And then you get, oh, well, I got to do this, that, and the other. First, you start out, it's a whole new field. Ooh, I want to explore this. And then as you get older and you start working, well, I guess I got to publish a paper so I can enhance that sort of thing. That's the battle we all face, the wonder and then reality. And you got to hope the wonder always exists, because that's what keeps you going, at least in the area of science, and I'm sure in all these other fields.
Yeah, I think it really holds true. Good. I'm glad it resonates with you. I think it holds true for all fields. Science is one that's good that way because discovery is sort of inherent to it, right?
Right. Yeah, you just don't have to allow yourself to get too distracted or discouraged by what life throws at you.
Mm-hmm. I find that the historian can be excited too, but the discoveries are really there of things that people have forgotten.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. As opposed to, oh, that's how those chemicals work, or that's the way the makeup really is of the thing that I'm examining. But history is sort of the joy and wonder of things that people haven't told you yet, or that you haven't found, but that someone knew at some point and wrote down. And I think we could go line by line through the subjects and find maybe a quintessential way in which each one evokes these things. But they definitely need to be cultivated, because clearly reality is going to get in the way, right? That's the way it works for Christians, right? Sin gets in the way and we have to cope with it. Yeah. And but if wonder and curiosity are properly cultivated in the student, right, in the child, then as reality gets in the way, they still have those things to hold on to remember, to be brought back to, those sort of first loves, those experiences with the material, the artwork, the science experiment, whatever it is, that awakens and invigorates in them that fire. It's Gustav Mahler. There's a quote: "Tradition is not the preservation of ashes. No, tradition is not the worship of ashes, but the preservation of fire." And so that I think is a tangent there. Tom, you wanted to throw something in?
Well, I actually do not have as much to say on this topic, but it's very good to listen. And I think that it's kind of, you are right that it's foreign in our cultural water that we're swimming in. I think it's very helpful to think of that distinction, the distinction between the curiosities, the good curiosity and the bad curiosity, though, and that it's different from stimulation. I think we live in a culture where stimulation, and we always want to find the next thing. But then the cultivation, I'm especially thinking about mathematics, which is my area. Sometimes it takes a lot of cultivation before you can appreciate the beauty that is there. And to get over that initial curve can be a challenge. But that is where, and previously you said, there's a lot to be said for having good modeling in the teacher, so that that eagerness is communicated, and then the students can see that and go over that. It's very helpful.
Yeah, Luther said that one of the best qualities in a teacher, if not the best, is that he actually be interesting. and able to hand over the material in an exciting way, which I think is odd for Luther. I mean, that's how Luther was, but it's odd for Luther to say that, because he put so much emphasis on the word, right, on objective things, that he also thinks that it's important that a teacher be an important means. But I can think of it's a math example for me. It's from a CCLE conference. I may have mentioned it here. I mentioned it last week at Coffee with the Headmaster, when a teacher was presenting on Euclid and geometry, and he had us all take out a compass, and he had us take out a straight edge, and he had us work through Euclid's first proof, and we all inscribed an equilateral triangle inside two circles. And it was a wondrous experience. I was really taken by it. It probably sounds not wondrous at all, but being in the room, seeing these lines line up as you're putting them in the circle, is really fascinating.
Yes.
And the fact that for 2,000 years we've had the ability to do this by reading Euclid, and yet most of the time math is just something that people make jokes about because they're so bored or they don't like it, right? There's a disconnect there that's unfortunate. I've come much more to appreciate math as an adult than I did as a kid, and actually mostly because I had to teach it. Teaching math has made me love it more, and then tell the kids who don't like it. Like right now, we're just finishing up in my Latin class, Wheelock 15, which is on numbers. And the worksheets I'm using from a friend, they have math on them in Roman numerals. So at the bottom of the page, once you work through your vocab, it'll say LVI times XII, and then you've got to solve it in Arabic numerals and then convert to Roman numerals. And some of the kids are like, "Yay! There's math in Latin." And then the language kids are like, "Oh, is this really going to be on the test? Can't I just translate sentences?"
Right. But in all of these subjects, there are so many different aspects to them. Like there's a lot of math that we do not teach, just like there's a lot of math that we do teach. And there's a lot of history that we do not teach. And there's a lot of history that we do teach. And just finding what is going to instill that eagerness can be more helpful than what we are teaching in those classes. And so to teach Euclid and you're seeing something that you did not see before, that is a very good activity to do, even if you don't. And it's like something else that you said, when someone who's forgotten Latin might be better off than someone who never learned it in the first place.
Sure. I enjoy Pi Day personally. That's March 14th is a very exciting math day for me. And the kids love it because we usually bring pi. And then I know Reverend Gaub will give points if people can give him the measurements off their pi, right? To give them radius and diameter and circumference. But those are, and actually that ties, as we're wrapping up, that ties directly into Scole. So next week, the video I recorded, Scole is leisure in learning, learning from rest. And oftentimes, historically, Scole is tied to learning and food and conversation. Essentially what we do a little bit with Coffee with the Headmaster, where everyone can be gathered around the thing that they're learning or contemplating. And there's a really easy and collegial way of growing and learning together. So next week, it'll be a monologue, unfortunately, because I had to record it. But that'll be up on YouTube of Scole, learning from rest. There's a lot of good things out there on Scole. Again, in the notes, the chat box for this session, leisure, the basis of culture, is really important at getting at Scole. If you type in Scole, which is the root for school, SCHOLE, I'll put it in the chat, but you will mostly find classical homeschool parents, classical speakers talking about this. It's a big hobby horse for Dr. Christopher Perrin, who's the classical academic press guy. And I think it's one of the more important parts of a classical education that needs to be recovered. This idea, right, as we wonder at things and as we're eager for them, that we actually take time to enjoy them. And that school is not always work, that there's actually a level of leisure when we're learning, which also cuts totally against the grain. Right? You're at school, it's your job. That's what I was told, right? You don't need a job right now because school is your job and you must do a good job at it. But there is, and there's, we don't want to get rid of hard work and determination. That's important too. But there needs to be room to relax. It's refreshing for students and for adults. All right. Well, it's after 10. Great anecdotes, Tom and Charlie. Thank you. Next week, stay tuned on YouTube for the Scole. And after Scole, we'll actually talk about some things that are more fun for the littlest children, and we'll go to embodied learning. That the education at Memorial and that a classical education is to be one that doesn't just engage the mind and the tongue and the writing, but the whole body. So that will be next, after next week's recorded Scole.
Thank you. Remembering your family in our prayers this week.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. My grandparents are in town staying with us to help my Long Island grandparents, who are now Floridians officially.
And
Charlie,
I know
my
where
grandma-
I'll be.
What?
I'll know where I'll be next March 14.
Yes, Pi
Yeah.
Memorial Lutheran School. As long as you can do the math, you can eat a piece.
All right. Good. Then make it Apple.
Arrive at
I'll be there.
1:59 p.m.
1:59 p.m.
That's when my mother-in-law receives the text message every year.
Every year, 3.14159. Man, very good. All right. On that exciting note, which actually I do like, have a great Friday.